This will come as a relief for former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. A sessions court, a special CBI court, had issued summons to him. They had made him an accused in the coal scam. The Supreme Court has now stayed the summons, which means the former Prime Minister does not have to respond for now to the CBI court summons. The Supreme Court took up this matter of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's petition that had challenged the summons issued to him by a special CBI court in connection with the coal scam. I want to quickly bring in our executive editor Javed Ansari for more on this. Javed, it's a big relief for the former Prime Minister.
Yes, indeed it is. And it will certainly reduce the stress levels of the former Prime Minister. He was extremely disturbed after he got the summons from the lower court. And his legal team, headed by Mr. Kapil Sibal, then decided that they will move the apex court for relief. Now, this by no yardstick does it mean that this is the end of the case.
Yes.
But certainly a big relief from the beleaguered former Prime Minister.
That's right. He's not off the hook. This is just a relief. It's respite for him, considering that the Supreme Court has stayed those summons. But the Congress party, Javed, had constantly alleged political vendetta.
Look, this was a summon issued by the lower court. So I don't know what the government of the day could have done. But certainly, yes, once the CBI had given its closure report, perhaps the central government could have stood its ground and insisted that the CBI has now given its closure report and the matter should be treated there. But otherwise, more than that, unless something really surfaces in the form of evidence, we cannot say that we cannot allege any kind of malified intent on part of the government.
Okay, Javed, stay on with me. Let me also bring in Ashar Ahmed Khan for more on this. Ashar, the former Prime Minister's daughters, we are told, had also gone to court today. The former Prime Minister, we are told, Dr. Manmohan Singh, was also tense. Take us through what transpired. I will try and re-establish that line with Ashar Ahmed Khan in just a moment. What we were told is former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh's daughters were also at the Supreme Court this morning for a hearing on his petition that sought exemption from appearance in a Delhi court in connection with the coal scam. Javed, Dr. Manmohan Singh is 82 years old and he in his petition says there was no quid pro quo, there was no malafide in whatever decisions were taken as far as the coal block allocations are concerned.
Yes, Gaurav, that has precisely been his argument from day one. Even before this case went to the courts, every time the media quizzed him, he said, I use my discretion as Prime Minister, as the Minister for Coal during that particular period, and whatever I did in a transparent manner and in national interest. And this is what a lot of politicians, even those who are on the other side of the political divide from Dr. Singh, have maintained, that as ministers, and especially a Prime Minister, must have the power to exercise his discretion in matters, and not every decision taken has a malified intent. And more so in a case where there is no quid pro, there is no money trail, where there is nothing to suggest that Dr. Manmohan Singh took the decision that he did for any extraneous reasons.
Okay. Of course, the Controller and Auditor General Javed had said that there was a loss of 1.86 lakh crores to the exchequer because of this discretion in allocation of coal blocks. And even though then Minister Kapil Sibal said that there was zero loss, that clearly wasn't the case.
Look, now whether that Mr. Vinod Rai brought in his wisdom, believed that this would have been the sum that would have been lost, that the centre had incurred a loss for. Now, whether that indeed was the case or not, this is not the time to get into that argument. There's a political argument that's been made from both sides. But as far as this particular case, Mr. Dr. Singh's involvement is concerned,
yes,
this has little to do with what Mr. Vinod Rai found out. And at the end of the day, a man can only be held guilty if there is any quid pro quo, if there is any malified intent.
Javed, stay with me for a moment. I also want to bring in my colleague Ashar Ahmed Khan, who's tracking the latest on this story. Ashar, relief for the former Prime Minister who's charged with criminal breach of trust, criminal conspiracy, cheating and corruption.
Well, absolutely. There is relief for the former Prime Minister. We have with us Mr. Ashwini Kumar, who's a former law minister and a senior advocate in the Supreme Court. Over to Mr. Ashwini Kumar.
Hello.
Mr. Kumar, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, Gaurav Sawant here. Sir, this relief is only temporary respite for the former Prime Minister, staying off the summons, sir.
Well, all I'm trying to tell you is that the court, after hearing the matter at length, has stayed the proceedings and stayed the summoning order, because the court came to the conclusion that there were substantial questions of law which needed to be answered.
Did the court specify, sir, what were questions that needed to be answered? Okay, so for the moment, we will get you more on what transpired inside court. But former Minister Ashwini Kumar saying that the Supreme Court heard their prayers at length and then deliberated and then stayed the summoning of former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, saying that there were legal issues that needed to be addressed before these summons were issued. We'll get you more on what transpired, but this is a major relief for former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. He had been made an accused in the 1,86,000 crore rupee coal scam. Not only was he made an accused, he was summoned by court in the coal scam, and today Dr. Manmohan Singh had his hearing in court in the Supreme Court, where he sought to quash those summons. He's been given a stay. Let's listen in to Ashwini Kumar.
The Honorable Supreme Court, after hearing arguments advanced on behalf of Dr. Manmohan Singh and others, came to the conclusion that since important and substantial questions of law and the processes of criminal trial were involved to be decided, they would like to decide those issues, and in the meantime they have ordered stay of the proceedings before the trial court and the stay of the summoning order. The court has issued rule, which means that the court will finally determine the issues which arise out of the various petitions challenging the summoning order. So, which means that till the Honorable Supreme Court decides for itself the substantial issues of law, the proceedings before the special court against the former Prime Minister and others stand stayed. That is the purpose of the order.
Interim stay, sir. That means this, as far as this.
You interpret it whichever way you want. This is a stay pending the decision of the issues by the Honorable Supreme Court, because rule is always issued when the court finds a strong prima facie case.
So notices were issued to the CBI?
Yes, they have now issued notices,
So, sir,
which have been accepted. CBI has already accepted notice in court, and the Union of India has been allowed to be served.
So which exactly means that he will not have to appear?
He will not have to appear. Former Prime Minister, none of them have to appear. आज माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट में पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री मनमोहन सिंह जी द्वारा और लोगों के द्वारा फाइल की हुई एसएलपी की सुनवाई हुई। करीब आधा घंटा बहस सुनने के बाद माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने इस पिटीशंस को अपने ध्यान में कबूल किया है और ये फैसला किया है कि जो मुख्य कानूनी मुद्दे इन पिटीशनों में उठाए गए हैं उन पर फैसला सुप्रीम कोर्ट करेंगे, और उसके बाद जो भी फैसला होगा, आगे की कार्रवाई होगी, तब तक के लिए, यानी जब तक माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट अपना फैसला इन मुद्दों पर नहीं सुनाते, तब तक के लिए जो निचली कोर्ट की प्रोसीडिंग्स हैं, ट्रायल कोर्ट का जो समनिंग ऑर्डर है या उनकी प्रोसीडिंग्स हैं, वो स्थगित हैं, वो सस्पेंडेड है या स्टेड है।
So Ashwini Kumar there clarifying that the Supreme Court has stayed the proceedings of trial court till the time the issues of law will be deliberated upon. There are several issues of law that Dr. Manmohan Singh's lawyers raised in court. Javed Ansari, our executive editor, with me on this. Javed, do we know more details about the legal aspects? What were principles of law or violation of those principles of law raised by Dr. Manmohan Singh's team?
Gaurav, I'm afraid we know little at the moment because this is the first reports that we got from outside court. It's only once the legal teams are able to sit down and go through the fine print will we know the details. But what we do know for sure is that Dr. Manmohan Singh has been exempted from personal appearance. Proceedings have been stayed, and this, in practical terms, means that Dr. Singh gets a temporary relief. Now, on the larger question of the case, that will take place once the whole process, judicial process, has gone through. We are long away from pronouncing anybody guilty or not guilty.
Javed, stay with me. Before we move on, let's once again listen in to former Minister Ashwini Kumar, who was also a part of Dr. Manmohan Singh's legal team in Supreme Court this morning. Let's listen in to Ashwini Kumar.
The matter came up. The Honorable Supreme Court, after hearing arguments advanced on behalf of Dr. Manmohan Singh and others, came to the conclusion that since important and substantial questions of law and the processes of criminal trial were involved to be decided, they would like to decide those issues, and in the meantime, they have ordered stay of the proceedings before the trial court and the stay of the summoning order. The court has issued rule, which means that the court will finally determine the issues which arise out of the various petitions challenging the summoning order. Which means that till the Honorable Supreme Court decides for itself the substantial issues of law, the proceedings before the special court against the former Prime Minister and others stand stayed. That is the purpose of the order.
Interim stay, sir. That means as far as this.
You interpret it whichever way you want. This is a stay pending the decision of the issues by the Honorable Supreme Court, because rule is always issued when the court finds a strong prima facie case.
So notices were issued to the CBI?
Yes, they have now issued notices, which have been accepted. CBI has already accepted notice in court, and the Union of India has been allowed to be served.
So which exactly means that he will not have to appear?
He will not have to appear. Former Prime Minister, none of them have to appear.
The Congress had raised an issue. Dr. Manmohan Singh's legal team had raised two major issues. Dr. Manmohan Singh said there was no mala fide intent on his part. There was no criminal intent. There was no quid pro quo. He had said that this accusation of criminal conspiracy and corruption was incorrect because on his part, as the Prime Minister, as the coal minister, there was no criminal intent, no quid pro quo in granting of coal block allocation. It was the need of the hour and they did that. But Ashwini Kumar also today raised the issue that there were substantial questions of law that the Supreme Court needed to deliberate upon, and that is why the stay was granted. And I want to bring in my colleague Ashar Ahmed Khan for more on this. Ashar, the proceedings lasted about half an hour, as Ashwini Kumar just said. Do we know what were these substantive issues of law that need to be discussed and deliberated upon?
Well, what happened inside was that the lead counsel for Dr. Manmohan Singh, Mr. Kapil Sibal, argued that what was the criminality and what was the criminal intent. That is something which could not have been established by the lower court. They were saying that the order of the lower court did not hold good in law. There was no criminality. It was only an administrative decision, and where was criminality, where was culpability, what was the quid pro quo. All these things were absent. That was the argument of the lawyers of former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. They also went on to add that these are administrative decisions which are taken on administrative prudence, right or wrong. But
and this is, I'll hold you for a moment there, Ashar. This is former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. His daughters, they had gone to court. They sat through the proceedings. Dr. Upinder Singh is a professor at the Delhi University. She and her sister were both present in court. and the daughters are also a part of the legal team. Those are pictures of former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. His daughters were present in the Supreme Court, as Ashar was just telling us. Ashar, go on. Kapil Sibal argued that there was no criminality. This was an administrative decision that Manmohan Singh had taken as then Prime Minister, also looking after the coal portfolio.
Then the lawyer also argued, basically stating that you needed criminal conspiracy. What was the criminal conspiracy? What was the meeting of minds for a criminal conspiracy to fraud the state and to earn personal benefits? All these arguments were put forward that there is nothing which has been established. There has been a closure report which has been filed by the CBI on this. The CBI has gone again and done the same thing, but nothing has been found. So, in spite of all that, such an order is a perverse order. That is what the lawyers of Dr. Manmohan Singh were saying in court. While the lordships in the court categorically stated that they would hear this matter, and at this stage, notices were also issued to the CBI and Union of India, except representatives of India and CBI who were present in the court.
Okay. Now, notices, as you say, have been issued to CBI. Today, the Supreme Court in that half an hour only heard Dr. Manmohan Singh's team. So this is relief for former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. The Supreme Court has stayed proceedings. They've stayed the execution of the summons of the trial court in the coal scam case. We will continue to track the story very closely.